Alright, so before I get started, I want to say I completely boomered my stream earlier. I talked for about 10-15 minutes and ended up having myself muted for the majority of the time, so I'm just going to start over from scratch here and try to get my thoughts together a little bit more now that I got past a section I was stuck on anyway. Um, so anyway, Frozen Gamer here. Hailing from the great cold state of Alaska, you know the deal. If you have ever watched any of my content, if you haven't, I'm not really surprised. I'm an extremely teeny tiny Unpoco channel. So Microsoft just bought Bethesda. Obviously, this is not new to most people. You know, this happened several days ago, and it's one of those things where there's been a whole sort of a bunch of debates across the board, back and forth, especially between fanboys. You know, you have the PlayStation fanboys who are, for the most part, being like, oh, this isn't that big of a deal because, you know, we have all of our exclusives. And then you have the Xbox fanboys who, well, maybe not necessarily as toxic necessarily. At the same time, there are definitely still some Xbox people who are that way, who are excited about this and trying to rub it in PlayStation faces, which, you know, I get it. I do. I understand. But I'm coming at it from a different perspective. I am someone, of course, who has never bought anything Xbox except for an Xbox One controller and an Xbox 360 controller, which before that, which I have sitting in my living room. The only reason I even replaced that with the Xbox One controller is because of the fact that my sticks were worn down on the 360 controller, and I wanted something new and different for playing games on PC. Just because some games I find control better with a controller. I do own everything from PlayStation, or I should say every PlayStation console and handheld. One iteration of each. So I have an original PS1, which I don't have available right now. I thought about trying to pull out all of my different ones, but I realized both my PS1 and my PS2, I believe, are boxed up in my kid's room, and it's just easier to not pull it out and bring them out. But anyway, so I have a PS1, a PS2 Slim, a PSP, the 2000 model, a PS3 Slim, a Vita 1000 model, that's the one with the OLED screen, and a PS4. And specifically the Destiny launch, or the Destiny 1 Glacier White one. But the thing is that I've become more and more a person who is kind of neutral. And to be clear, when I say neutral, I'm not saying that I don't appreciate a lot of the games from PlayStation, and that I don't, have some thoughts on Xbox and everything else. I've obviously been someone who's just been kind of... I never really felt like I was ready to jump into Xbox because I was so late to it. Like I played a tiny bit of the original Xbox at a friend's house. Back when before Halo 2 even existed. And I was absolutely terrible at Halo because I did not know how to use dual joysticks for aiming. And, since then, I don't think I've ever played an Xbox. Oh, no, that's not true. I did play a tiny bit of, Star Wars Battlefront, like in 2017. It was like February 2017 at my friend's house, and some of us were playing together. So apart from that, I have basically, it's like I've had 2 times I played an Xbox in my life, and otherwise I just haven't. Whereas PlayStation, PS1, it was like my Final Fantasy machine, RPGs. I played a pretty good variety of games, even though between that and the N64, I ended up liking the N64 more and getting a lot more games for that. It just wasn't... N64 was more like different kinds of games than PlayStation, where it was more just like RPGs, that kind of thing. And, you know, PS2 was like Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts. And that was basically it. PSP, it was Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts. And that was basically it. Of course, you know, having a portable... The first time I could play, like, Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9 portably. So I was really excited about that. And PS3 was when I really started getting into PlayStation franchises more, with like Infamous and Uncharted and what else was there? A little bit of Ratchet and Clank, not very much of that. I only played a tiny bit of the first one, the remaster, Shadow of the Colossus. I guess that's really about all it was, but and then you know, I played some games like Red Dead Redemption and a little bit of Final Fantasy 13 and things like that. But that was kind of when my opinion, what I thought of for PlayStation started to shift, and then I started really getting into the franchises with PS4, even though there's still probably like 3 or 4 main first-party games that I never played. Okay, just making sure I'm still not muted, so I'm not wasting my time again. So I'm just kind of coming at it from that perspective. I'm someone who has had PlayStation for a long time, has been into PlayStation for a long time. Xbox, I've never had anything Xbox. But I'm coming at it from a different perspective this generation, because now I'm much more invested, both financially and otherwise, in PC gaming. And furthermore, you know, I'm just kind of like... Especially if PlayStation is going to be putting more of their first-party games on PC, I feel less and less incentivized to buy a PlayStation 5. Because I kind of feel like it's a waste to buy the games twice. I'm tired of buying games more than once. I'm at the point where I don't want to keep doing that, especially because essentially the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, or even Series S, they're essentially PCs. They're just different. I mean, PCs with a couple of custom parts. That's basically what they are. And if their games all end up coming over to PC, then there's little reason for me to get them on a PS5. You know, it's like I might as well just wait and get it on PC. Nintendo has it different just because of the fact that they happen to have not only their first-party games, which are not actually, at least as far as we know, not going to be coming to PC, but also because of the fact that they have a portable system. And, like, don't get me wrong, I loved what PlayStation did with their portables, other than the fact that Vita they basically just abandoned way too fast. Which really disappointed me, because I liked some of the stuff they put out on there, especially like Uncharted. I thought was great. I thought the Vita had a lot of potential, and I ended up playing quite a few games on Vita. Most of which have been like PS2 remasters, which, I mean, they're games I had never played, so it's been great for me. But Nintendo, of course, is doing the Switch, and they'll probably do basically another Switch for their next, whatever their next Switch ends up being. And the convenience of having it portably for me is a much bigger deal, because I don't have to be at my console. I don't have to be like in front of a TV. I don't have to be, in front of a computer. I can just play it wherever I happen to be wherever I happen to be at the time. If I have the time to play, I can bust it out, play for 5 minutes, and there you go. Whereas if it's just a home console, it's like, okay, well, I have to be at home. It has to be plugged into something, because remote play, regardless of what anyone says, is trash. I mean, like, I've been able to make it work a couple of times, and occasionally it was kind of nice, like early on when I got my PS4, to bring my PS4 and then just remote play on my Vita with it right next to each other. But otherwise, it's just complete garbage. it's not worth it. Even if you have triggers added, it's still not worth it. For most games. I will say it worked. They did a really good job with the remote play version of Infamous Second Son, because they mapped everything really well. Then other games like Ratchet and Clank, the remake, and Arkham Knight, things like that, just did not work well at all. Sorry, just trying to keep my throat reasonably wet so that I'm not drying out while I'm talking, because I don't talk this much normally. So anyway, getting back to the main topic at hand, I'm coming at this from a different perspective than other people, and I do see a lot of fanboyism on both sides, but especially on the PlayStation side, and a lot of people who are really so hardcore on PlayStation to where they can't see it as a positive thing, or either that or they're just kind of in denial about it being that big of a deal, when in reality it could very well be a very big deal. Now, it's hard to say for sure how much of a big deal it is, because we don't even know how many of the games are going to be actual, like, first-party exclusive games versus how many of them are still going to come to other platforms. Doom, as an example, I mean, right now you have Doom on everything. You have it on Xbox One, you have it on PS4, you have it on PC, you have it on Switch. Doom Eternal, same thing, although the Switch version hasn't come out yet, and I'm hoping that it will soon, because I've been wanting to try it out on there. Speaking of which, what you're seeing right now is obviously the PC version of Doom. I might as well try and play a little bit while I'm talking. We'll see how successful I can be at doing that. But the thing is that Microsoft is not... Oh, that was really smart. Don't do what I just did. Microsoft is not in a position where they absolutely need to be able to sell consoles in order to make money. That's just the reality. I know that a lot of, especially PlayStation fanboys, really want it to be that way, because then they always feel like they have a leg up, which, you know, it's understandable. You love PlayStation. You've been, in many cases, a PlayStation fan for 25 years, from a lot of the people that I know. And, you know, even those who are younger than that have been PlayStation fans for the majority of their lives. And so, I get it. You know, you love your piece of plastic, and you want to defend it. You want everybody to love it, and, you know, in some sense, maybe it even gives you a little bit of a feeling of superiority, knowing that your system happens to be the best-selling one. But I'm in a position where I definitely see it as... maybe. I mean, like PlayStation has some amazing exclusives. There is no question about that. Some of my favorite games in the past decade were on PlayStation. In fact, you know, I did a video a while ago, my top 10 from games that were released between 2010 and 2019, and God of War made that list. I mean, it's like in my top 5, and honestly, it's in my top games of all time. I loved that game so much, and I never played a God of War before that because of various things. I just wasn't, that kind of turned me off to those games. But, you know, I look at something like God of War, and I recognize that it's the kind of game that, I mean, it was exactly the kind of game that I wanted. It was, you know, it was a great Metroidvania, and it was well worth it. Spider-Man was amazing. Definitely an excellent game. Horizon Zero Dawn was a very good game. It was not as great to me as it was to many PlayStation fans, I guess, because I felt like in many ways it was a little derivative. But even with that being said, it was still a really great game. Of course, now it's on PC as well. But with Microsoft getting Bethesda, they are getting some of the biggest games that are out there. You know, you think about games like, especially the Elder Scrolls. Look at Skyrim. Skyrim has been out for 9 years. Well, just about 9 years, because I think they originally released in November. I want to say it was November of 2011. And Skyrim has has sold so much ridiculous amounts that, you know, it's like it's been on, you know, PS3 and 360 and PS4 and Xbox One and Switch, and wouldn't surprise me if there's like a mobile version that I don't know exists. There's an Alexa version, an Amazon Alexa version. I mean, it's not, you know, obviously not visuals as part of it, but, you know, that game is humongous. And anyone acting like, oh, it's not a big deal. Yeah, it is. I mean, I recognize, yes, we have no idea how long it's going to take for Elder Scrolls 6 to be ready. And the fact is, it probably would if Bethesda was just left to their own devices. But with Microsoft backing them, they could easily give them the kick in the pants that's needed in order to get the game really moving along, to actually make progress. Bring a bunch more people in. Have them work hard on it. Get it out of the creation engine. Because it's such a trashy, buggy engine. Or at least, at the very least, if they're going to have it in the creation engine, have some people who can actually work on it and get things working properly. I mean, another thing to think about is Elder Scrolls Online. You know, I haven't played it, but I've heard from a lot of people who do play it that it is great. And it is very popular. It's doing very well. It might even be doing better than Destiny. I don't know for sure. I mean, you know, don't quote me on that because I'm no expert. I don't remember. I don't know what the actual stats are. But even if, you know, even if it's not necessarily doing that well, it still does well for them. And it's something that's not going away anytime soon. I'm sorry, I'm trying to multitask here and remembering where to go. I'm trying to find some collectibles, and I've only found the collectibles once before, so I'm just kind of like vaguely remembering where some things are. Okay. Yeah. But anyway, so, you know, these huge properties, obviously Doom has done really well, and, you know, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much that even after having played it to completion on Switch, where I absolutely loved it, I'd bought it on PC as well. Granted, PC obviously it runs a lot better and looks a lot better, but, you know, it still was great on Switch. And, you know, I'll probably end up buying Doom Eternal twice, too, because, I mean, you know, portable version, and then get the superior version. Okay, where is it? Okay, I might not be able to get back to anything. Either that or there might not be anything else to find in this first part. I can't remember. Let's see here. So, just trying to kind of get back to the topic at hand. Microsoft is in a position where they can have all of these great games and any future games in the series on Game Pass, which makes Game Pass, which is already a ridiculously good value, an even better value. Especially when you put something like Skyrim, Fallout 3 and 4, you know, some Fallout New Vegas. Speaking of which, they could easily put, since now they have Obsidian and Bethesda under the belt, they could just put Obsidian on making another Fallout game. Because from what I've heard from a lot of people who are fans of the series, New Vegas was better. It was much less buggy than anything that Bethesda themselves have put out. And you put them on that, you get a good Fallout game out there again. You know, whether New Vegas 2 or what have you. And you know, you get out in a much shorter amount of time than you would if it was just Bethesda proper working on it. All right, let's see what happens. Can I? Oh, I don't have enough fuel. That is not the gun I wanted to use. That did not work. So you give Microsoft's resources to Bethesda and all of their sub-studios to make more of these games, make more entries. They can put out games at a much faster pace, which would be beneficial to both Microsoft and Bethesda. And then at the same time, you also make it so that you can have hopefully better quality control. Not so much buggy messes, and hopefully, they'll just be able to do everything they need to do with it. That's better. Okay, let's see if I can stay alive. Well, hey, buddy. Ah, dang it, I don't have enough fuel. Ah, yeah. Sorry, multitasking is not always my strong suit. But as far as what happens with these games, if they do still come to PlayStation, even maybe Switch, depending on whether Nintendo puts out like a more powerful Switch or not, or when they do it, rather, since it's really just a question of when and not if. Microsoft still has so much profitability between all their other things to where you sell consoles very well in order to be profitable. I mean, you compare what it is what they spent on Bethesda, just what they spent on Bethesda, which is $7.5 billion. I think it was Yang that pointed out that the amount that they spent on Bethesda is more than what Sony made in profits for an entire year. Which is just, like, insane to think about. Microsoft is not going to have any issues with profitability. They're just not. Even if they just keep putting everything on all the consoles. Especially when you consider the reality that if they do put everything on all the consoles, they're going to get a cut of every sale. So even if the PlayStation gets better sales, Microsoft is still going to be making lots of money. Yeah. That is not what I want, and neither is that. Ah, dang it. In case anybody's wondering, I'm playing on Ultra Violence difficulty, which I think that probably if I was just playing, I could do a little bit better, but since I'm trying to do multitask, I'm It's not my strong suit. So let's go into the possibility that Microsoft decides to actually make everything exclusive. Make all of these Bethesda titles first-party games that are only on Xbox and PC, that do not come to PlayStation, do not come to Switch, or, you know, at least for the most part, don't. They'll probably have some here and there, but I'm going to guess that probably most of them, like, you know, like Halo Infinite is not going to come to Switch, it's not going to come to PlayStation, unless something dramatic changes. Those are not going to come to those platforms. They're just not. And, you know, that would be... I mean, you know, anyone who thinks that they will, well, you're probably mistaken. I'm sorry. It just... I mean, if they have some games that are first-party exclusives, it could very well be that they just end up doing all of the Bethesda games in that category as well. Come on. Gotta keep moving. Keep rolling, 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 rolling. Yeah. Okay, so Xbox decides to make you know, things like Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Doom, etc., etc., all exclusive to the Xbox and PC. Those things in and of themselves could be very huge. I mean, like I was talking about before, those are massive properties. And so, you know, you take those things alone, those could potentially be humongous for profitability. But at the end of the day, regardless of what it is they decide to do, you know, Microsoft is still in a better position than essentially anyone else when it comes to profitability. I mean, you know, you can say all you want about how much value their exclusives actually have, but at the end of the day, Microsoft is not hurting for money. Did I make it? No, that's not it. Come on. No, that's not what I meant to do. Oh, sweet, I did it. Okay. So... Clearly I'm not very good at multitasking here, which is the reason why my videos normally I would record the gameplay separately, then I would record the audio, and just, you know, overlay it. But right now I'm trying out different things because I want to just do more. And, you know, this is kind of an easier format to actually get it done than trying to get it edited and then get it all uploaded and everything else. So, at the end of the day, like I said, Microsoft is extremely profitable no matter what they do with these properties. Yes, $7.5 billion is a lot of money, but for Microsoft, it really isn't that much. I mean, okay, I guess I shouldn't say it's not that much, but in the scheme of how much money Microsoft makes per year, $7.5 billion is not much. I mean, this company has been around for, let's say, I think it was like sometime, I want to say it was late 80s, early 90s that Microsoft started putting out their products, between DOS and then eventually early versions of Windows and so on and so forth. And, that's completely ignoring Xbox. I mean, obviously, Xbox 360 has been their most profitable of the consoles they put out. The original Xbox did alright. 360 did amazing. It completely killed the PS3 in sales. I mean, eventually PS3 caught up, but it took the entire generation. Then Xbox One just did awful. But even with all of that being said, Microsoft has been diversifying. They've been figuring out ways to give more value, draw more people in. And as of right now, I mean, Game Pass, it is an extremely good value. Some would argue that maybe it isn't necessarily going to be worth as much as like if they were actually just selling games all the time. And to some degree, that's probably true. But at the same time, if you think about it, most of the time, Microsoft is, people buying $60 games, Microsoft is probably making more as an actual profit by just doing the Game Pass than they are by selling $60 games. And the reason for that is because of the fact that there's a whole lot more people who have Game Pass and a whole lot of people who probably don't even play. So they're paying for it. They're not playing anything. They're just giving this $15 a month or whatever it happens to be, depending on plans and so on and so forth. I don't know all the details since I don't do Xbox. So that they're getting this subscription fee by default. And for all the people who play constantly, there's probably a million other people, or at least hundreds of thousands of other people who are barely touching it. I know quite a few people who they have Xbox and they have PlayStation, and they pretty much only play PlayStation, even though they do have a Game Pass subscription. Like, they're playing PlayStation, they're playing Nintendo, they're playing maybe PC. They're not playing Xbox games, but they're still getting Microsoft money. So, in reality, Microsoft is probably actually making more. It might sound like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but let me give you an example. After I get a drink here and double check, make sure I didn't mute myself again, so I haven't just been wasting my time talking for nothing. So with PlayStation, in the past 2 years, so just saying between 2018 and 2019, I bought I think 4 games. I bought in 2018. I bought Horizon Zero Dawn, which I think I bought in April. I only spent $30 on it for the complete version. 30 or 40 it was one of the two, but it was the complete version, everything included. I bought at the end of the year. I bought God of War and Detroit Become Human. I spent $20 on each of those. Then, so I bought those 3 games in 2018. I didn't spend full price on a single one of those games. In 2019, I bought Spider-Man, and I bought actually, no, I bought that so Spider-Man I bought in 2019. I think that might be the only game I actually bought in 2019 on PS4. And then this year I bought Infamous First Light and Ghost of Tsushima. Otherwise, I have not bought any games on PlayStation in the past 2 years. Or almost 2 years, I guess is more accurate. That's kind of... I mean, you think about it. I mean, even the amount that I spent on those games, I did not spend full price on a single one of those games. Grand total, let's see here, we have for God of War and Detroit Become Human, that's a total of $40. That's for 2 games, 2 full games, and God of War, I spent like 90 hours on. Detroit, much less than that. Spider-Man, I got a good 60 hours or something out of that without having completed the second DLC. And that I spent $30 for the complete version. Horizon Zero Dawn, $30, complete version. So I guess I need to add that up. Sorry. So, okay, so Horizon Zero Dawn, $30. God of War and Detroit Become Human, another 40. So that's $70 I spent. Then, with Spider-Man, another $30. So that's $130, and then $20 for Infamous First Light, $150, and Ghost of Tsushima, because I had some discounts on Best Buy, even though I got the deluxe version, it was $55. So that was so that puts me under $200. Under $200 for 2 years worth of PlayStation 4 games that I bought. And I haven't had PlayStation Plus since early 2019. That's the last time I had it, because I remember I had it when I was playing Persona 4 Golden, and I was transferring my save between the Vita and the Vita TV so that I could play both ways. That's the last time I had PlayStation Plus. So I have not had PlayStation Plus since then. So less than $200. Now, Game Pass, $15 a month. If you think about that, 15 times 10, that's $150. $150 for 10 months, plus another $30 for another 2 months, so $145 a year. That's per year. $145 for Game Pass alone. Where I spent $185 on 2 years worth of games from PlayStation. Because there's other games I just wasn't interested in, other games I didn't buy, and of course, because I didn't pay full price for any of those games. Now, also, that's another thing you have to consider, is with Xbox, when they do Game Pass, they are making more money than they make off of a lot of people, because some people, they just straight up, they either won't buy the game, or they'll wait till it goes on discount. And when it's on discount, they're not really making anything off of it. So with Game Pass, they're actually making probably more money than we realize, just off of that. Plus, then there's all these games that are old games that people play that hadn't played before, that they're not really making any money off of because they're already heavily discounted. And so, ultimately, that's another thing. Yes, there are definitely going to be people who buy the Xbox, they buy Game Pass, they never buy another game. But the thing is, they're still giving money to Microsoft every year just for those things, and that's not counting the cost of Xbox Live, which is another, I think, $70 a year, if I remember correctly, 60 or 70. And so, people are giving considerably more money just for that. So even if they never sell one of these games, they're still going to draw people to their service. There's still going to be people who come over, and they want to save money, and ultimately they probably are going to save money. It saves money for the consumer, but it actually, at the same time, is still profitable for Microsoft for the most part, even if people don't necessarily buy their consoles. But I do think people will. People will probably, even if they just buy the Xbox Series S, being able to get games at 1080p, 120 frames per second, that's really good. There's plenty of people who would love to do that. Personally, I'm not going to do it because most of the games it's like if I really want the game, I'll just get it on PC. And, I'll wait for a sale. Red Dead Redemption 2 is an example, is one I've been waiting for a while, just because I really want to get it, but I don't want to spend more than 50% of the price, because I know that I could get it cheaper if I wait. And, I'm playing I'm playing Assassin's Creed Origins right now, which is, another open world kind of game, and it's like, well, I'll keep playing that for now, and when Red Dead Redemption drops down to 50% off, then I'll buy it. So Microsoft is counting on people who are either lazy, forgetful, you're too lazy to cancel their subscription, people who, the many people who are like not even using it really. They're basically just, they're getting the advantage of it, but they're not really getting the advantage of it. They're not taking full advantage of it because they play other platforms as well. And so ultimately this Bethesda purchase is something that's going to be extremely beneficial for them. And I know that, you know, especially PlayStation fans and fanboys, even more so, are going to think, well, this isn't that big of a deal. We still have all of our exclusives. And that's great. You know, the PlayStation does have some, like I said, some great exclusives. Some of which are amazing. But Xbox is still in probably a better position than they've been in a long time because of this great value that they have with Game Pass. And with Microsoft buying Bethesda, it's just increased the value dramatically. I mean, like, it's really hard for people. I'm going to be curious to see how many people switch over to Xbox just because of this. Sorry, my wife just found that my middle son decided that he would have a bloody nose and get it all over the place. I mean, it's fine. He's fine. It's just something that happens occasionally. I think it's just because it's a little dry right now. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. None of that is part of the topic here. So, I don't know. I don't know if I've really said anything that adds anything to the conversation or not, but it's something worth considering. And, you know, like I said, I'm coming at it from the perspective of a guy who owns everything from PlayStation, but has no interest in buying either of these consoles. Yet I can still look at it from the perspective of someone who is in that position and see that Bethesda, you know, being bought out by Microsoft is really beneficial to Microsoft. And I mean, we'll see what it does for other systems. If they end up, you know, having all these exclusives, it's definitely going to make it so that more people are going to be interested in Microsoft than they were otherwise. Which I think is great. It's competition. It's something to give Sony... Sony needs more competition from that standpoint. But even if they decide to put everything on other platforms, you know, even if it's not just Xbox and PC, but it also comes to PlayStation, comes to Nintendo whenever Nintendo puts out something more powerful, it's still going to be beneficial to Microsoft. They're still going to make money out of it. And I think that ultimately this investment was a really, really smart acquisition from that standpoint. And if they do end up making these games exclusives, it's just... It's going to suck for PlayStation and Nintendo fans, but it might just have to convince people to, you know, invest in either Xbox or a PC. For me, it doesn't affect me. I'm not going to be affected by this at all. I mean, it's like, I'll still be able to play it on PC. If it doesn't come to Switch, then I won't get to play it on Switch, and I'll just be like, oh well, I guess I'm going to play the best looking, best running version possible rather than having portable, and I'll just keep playing other games portable, and it'll be fine. I don't need to be able to play these games portably in order to be able to enjoy them. It's just better when I can. And when I can't, then, oh well, I guess I'm just going to have to play the best looking version. Oh man, I have to play at 120 frames per second or more? Dang, that's such a bummer. Now, of course, you guys can't tell that I'm running at that high of a frame rate on here because you can't stream that fast, and even if I don't even have fast enough internet to do that anyway. But man, playing at those high frame rates, wonderful. So until next time, forgive all my rambling. Trying out this new format, seeing how it works. Tell me what you think in the comments below. I'm sure there's going to be fanboys, if anybody actually even watches this thing, who will have something to say. But until next time, this has been the Frozen Gamer, and I will talk to you